To be honest, like I've never been a fan of cardio.
Shame on you, Megan. How dare you? You're a fitness professional. You need to love it all.
We all have our strengths and the things that we like, and cardio not so much, although I was an NCAA rower as well, which is like...
That is the most brutal cardio. That's why you hate cardio. You got PTSD. Hello and welcome to the BODi Experience. Today we're talking to Megan Davies, BODi super trainer, and she's currently in production of the Sure Thing Super Block. A super block is like a remake of your favorite movie, okay? In this case, of the Sure Thing program is your favorite movie, but now we're reproducing it in the same sort of format, but a half hour a day for 3 weeks. Okay, let's bring Megan on and let's talk to a super trainer and find out what's going on. Hi, Megan. It looks like you're at the studio.
I am at the studio. I'm actually in my dressing room. And right after this, I go into filming my last 2 workouts of the super block. So it's an exciting day.
That is awesome. Okay, before we get into the super block, I want to retrace the steps that got you here. And I heard that there's a sort of an interesting story behind that. So I'm going to pull up my daily dose of dense nutrition, and I want to hear the story of what was your first encounter with BODi. Actually, back in the day, we were called Beachbody, but I understand you had a run-in or an encounter where you met Tony Horton before you were even associated with it. Sort of small world story. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I wasn't even sure how much I had shared of this story, if we had ever talked about it before. But I came into Beachbody at the time through a reality show called The 20s. That was in 2015 that I auditioned for that, and not really knowing what I was getting myself into. But if I rewind even before that, probably 3 or 4 years before that, I had just opened a gym in South Florida, and I got approached because a different reality show, completely unrelated, was coming into my town, needed a gym to film at, and it was part of Lifetime. And so they said, we're going to come in, we're going to film this reality show, we're going to have a celebrity trainer with us, we're not going to tell you who it is, can we film at your gym? And I'm just sitting there thinking, my new gym on Lifetime, like, yes, please come in and film at my gym. But the celebrity trainer ended up being Tony Horton. And I just remember we spent the entire day with Tony. Tony was exactly what you see, so much energy, so much fun. I remember we took him out to lunch and we were at Chipotle, and he was like trying to do handstands in the Chipotle and bouncing around and just being so funny. And I was sitting there like, man, this guy has a really cool job. I remember thinking exactly that. This guy has a really cool job. And at the end of the day, he left and I didn't think about it again. And so in 2015, when I auditioned, I've told you this part before, which is I said no when I first got asked to audition because I am an introvert. And I said, reality show is not for me. I don't want somebody following me around with a camera. That sounds like my nightmare. So I said no once. I said no twice. I finally just put in the audition tape, just basically so it's like I don't have to be asked again. I was like, audition for a lot of things and I don't get most of them. So it's going to be fine. And then when I moved forward in the process, I was like, what is this? Like, what am I even getting myself into at this point? I'm doing a reality show. This is completely out of my comfort zone. And so I Googled Beachbody and who comes up but the guy with the really cool job. And I was like, oh, Tony Horton, like I should probably take this a little bit more seriously.
That is awesome. So again, and even the 20s, the reality show that we did. So I'll describe that for a second. Then I want to hear your experience about it or in it. So, I was paying attention to what was happening on TV, obviously reality shows, Amazing Race, or, what was the island one? Survivor. Right. And The Apprentice. So you got all these things where people are sort of game showing real life. And the one thing that we get probably, weekly requests from trainers who want to be the next super trainer. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting for us to open up that process a little bit and formalize the process, and particularly try to find somebody who is maybe indexing younger than our slate of trainers. So we were looking for somebody 30 or younger. So we called the show The 20s. And also the end result was going to be a series of 20-minute workouts. So kind of a cool idea. And so we cast all these people, and we had Dan Cortese from MTV Sports as the host, who's a friend of mine, and then we put you all in a house.
It was just like the real world. Like,
it really
that's
was,
what it
right?
was.
Yeah, and you put a bunch of 20-year-olds in the house. It's like it's like college. So you're just wondering things are going to happen. And we had people. There was like guys throwing cups around. You had couples flirting in the hot tub and sneaking off, and so and then there was all these challenges. So what was, just real quick, because I do want to get to the super block, what was your experience of that first of its kind, the first, and I don't know if it's the last, but certainly the first reality show that we've ever done, in this mansion in the Hollywood Hills? What was your experience of that whole thing?
It was a really positive experience, actually. And going into it, I had a lot of apprehension because, like I said, I'm an introvert. And so it was very far out of my comfort zone to be on camera like that and to pull that much, I don't know, just energy out of me every single day. I was like really trying to put it all out there because I was like incredibly invested at that point of knowing like, wow, I didn't even know that this is what I wanted. But as soon as I got there, I was like, this is exactly where I want to be. But just going through it with everybody there, it ended up being incredibly positive. Everybody was very supportive of each other. And natural drama did happen. Like it just naturally occurred. But at the same time, I feel like we were all like became really good friends. The challenges were really tough. And at the end of the day, I don't even know if I'm supposed to tell this, but we shot the 3 endings. And so I didn't even know I won for several months, actually, because we shot 3 different endings. And so there's just a long time of me waiting to see if I became the next super trainer or what was happening. But the whole thing was an awesome experience. And I think it really changed me as a person, because even though I'm introverted now, the experience of going on to that show, becoming a super trainer, all that's happened since, it's like, I've realized that I can do these things even as an introvert, which has been a really cool experience too, just changing me as a person.
That's awesome. Well, I don't know. Do we even have, is that show, do we have it on the platform? Do you know?
It's still on the platform.
So if anybody wants to watch the 20s and just see how many episodes did we do? 10?
I think it was like 10 episodes. And to be honest, I can't watch it. Like it gives me so much anxiety to watch it. I know what's going to happen. And I'm still like, oh my gosh.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, that's a trip. So yeah, it was like our version of Apprentice, because John and I would show up and we would, look like we were the bosses, and I guess we were the bosses. All right. So then the first thing he did was this program Clean Week, which was sort of a collection from all the programs to sort of show members what they could do on the platform, and also give it was a sort of a free week. Just jump in, a little bit of a meal plan, give this a shot, and then see if you want to go do a full program. Your first full program you did was, you have been through the weirdest things. Like, because, so we're planning to do this program, MBF, hashtag MBF, which stands for Muscle Burns Fat. And that lands right in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah. And so, social distancing, we can't get the cast together, but we managed to do it. And it was a blockbuster for people. We introduced the bod ropes. It was like virtual, sort of the beginning of the bodcast.
Yeah.
And we did MBF and MBFA. And I'm going to skip right over that, not get your input on it, but I will say you demonstrated your agility with that, because, unlike having a cast behind you, you had to figure out how to make this new virtual thing work. And because you made it work so great, we were able to do this thing called the podcast in our live workouts. 'Cause it was like, that is really cool. You as a trainer had this ability to look at the form people had and cue them, which no other platform has. Like, it's the closest thing to an actual personal trainer virtually eyes on you, that basically was invented by Megan Davies and now called the Podcast. So that's pretty cool. So then a couple of years later, I wanted a program that that when is somebody who's struggling to get started with their own lifestyle transformation, I think one of the biggest things that can be an obstacle or a headwind for people is they feel like they're going to start something. Like they might go to YouTube and find some workout videos, or they join a gym, and then there's that first week or so of doing it, and they're like, is this going to work for me? I'm sore. I've got a cortisol response. So I've got some inflammation. So it kind of feels gross. You feel like you're gaining weight. And so I wanted something that a person could start day one and know absolutely sure that we had tested the program, laid it out step by step, a comprehensive approach that you are absolutely 100%, if you follow the trainer's instructions, going to get the outcome that we promised. And that was called, appropriately, Sure Thing. So tell me about that program and what went into designing it and how you lived up to this promise of a sure thing for people.
Yeah, I mean, I always think back to like, what do I want to deliver in a program? I think back to what made me fall in love with fitness. And I've been doing this for a very long time. As far as like weight training, I started doing that when I was 14 years old. So what made this a positive experience for me at 14 years old, when for so many people, it's not that positive experience? I always try to think about that. And I always kind of go back to kind of the language that was being used around me at the time. Like if we were talking about nutrition in my household, it wasn't necessarily about aesthetic goals. It was like, oh, we want to, try to eat healthier as a family because we want to like take care of ourselves better. We want to have more energy, things like that. If I was, working out, then it was always about gaining strength and finding consistency. Everybody around me was always like really positive about like if I got to that next heavier pair of dumbbells, or if I could do my first push-up or something like that. So I feel like the process was what was a really positive experience for me. And luckily I had the people around me to talk about it like that, to where it wasn't this negative thing where I was beating myself up into, okay, I need to start a fitness routine. I need to start like eating better or anything like that. And so that's always what I want to bring to other people is we are trying to take care of ourselves long term. And if we fall in love with that process of, I'm excited to work out today, maybe because I have an aesthetic goal, that's okay too. But also because I am so excited that, yesterday I couldn't do this thing. And today I'm a little bit closer to be able to do that first push-up or to pick up with the heavier dumbbells or whatever that strength goal is for you. We start seeing these little improvements in our abilities, and that builds so much confidence. And so that's really where Sure Thing started coming about, is like, I want to give people that process, that language that says, this is going to be a fun experience. You're going to want to show up every single day. So when we started talking about Sure Thing, one of the taglines literally was, success starts on day one. Like, you showed up today. That is a win. You're going to do your best through today's workout. And that's a starting point that we're going to build off of. And because a lot of the workouts are so diverse, like a lot of diversity in formats, but enough consistency in what moves you're doing to get better, people do have a good time and they do want to show up the next day. It keeps it very fresh and exciting for them to show up every single day. And so that's exactly what I want. I want people to fall in love with the process of showing up for them, being excited about their workout, being excited about getting into the kitchen and trying new meals and things like that. So that way, yes, eventually the aesthetic goal comes because you did show up for yourself every single day. And that way, we're also just caring for ourselves. As we get older, I want you to feel strong. I want you to feel healthy. I want you to feel able. And that's what I feel like this program gives to people.
Now, but I totally appreciate that. And I remember going through that process. Obviously, the whole essence of what we call health esteem is about not just making about the outcome, but making it an experience that is rewarding today, that just feels good about you, that helps your self-esteem, but as much as I appreciate that your family was like, what's my goal with this food and I'm eating and getting stronger, you were a competitor. So don't mess around with me. You needed an outcome, and you were a very successful competitor. How does what you learned as a competitor and creating a program called Sure Thing,
Hmm.
I want that outcome also.
Yeah.
How did those two things come together with the way you structured the program, and how does that relate to how you've structured now the Super Block?
Yeah. I mean, I was a competitor. Yeah, I did figure competitions for 13 years. That's what got me started in weight training. When I was 14 years old, I started competing at that age as well. So from 14 years old till 27, I competed. I competed nationally, NPC. And that did form a lot of how I approach a workout. I also think as I segued out of competing and having my diet very structured to gain the most amount of muscle possible and to dial in my body fat so that way I could get on stage to compete. I think as I kind of transitioned out of that, I also gained a lot of experience in just being like, what's next for me? Like I'm not an athlete anymore. I'm not competing anymore. Now I am just really trying to take care of myself. So I kind of then try to blend the best of both worlds, right? I want people to gain muscle. I want them to feel great in their body. I want them to have that confidence and take care of themselves in the long term. So I feel like I got to blend the two worlds together with that heavy strength training that I was doing before. To be honest, like I've never been a fan of cardio, and coming from that background of heavy strength training and really powerlifting of bench and squat and deadlift, those were like my go-tos. So there was a little bit of cardio involved, but it's like not something that I wanted to put in my day-to-day routine until I started transitioning. And I was like, well, I need this for cardiovascular health as well. Like I need this again as another step to take care of myself. So with my background of before of getting those results, whether it came from nutrition or whether it came from the workouts themselves and building the muscle, that foundation for our body, or again, transitioning out of that time of my life into, I just need to take care of myself now. I think you get the best of both worlds with the Sure Thing program for sure, because you are going to be lifting heavy. I'm going to challenge you. Literally, I say it so often. Can we pick up the heavier dumbbells? Like we're going to get into those lower rep ranges. Can you go heavier? I am reminding you every single day because I want you to build that strength. But now you get kind of a well-rounded approach to fitness when it comes to Sure Thing, which was a really cool experience to kind of build off of all the various, parts of my experience as well.
Yeah, well, it's funny, when I lift, I'm always I tend to want to be maybe, picking up dumbbells. I'm probably usually 5 to 10 pounds lower than what I could do, right? So if I'm doing a press or squats or something, I'm picking 5 pounds lower, 10 pounds lower, and I do want to say there's something. I'm always shocked when I'll pick up the bigger dumbbells. I'm like, oh, I can move them.
Yeah.
And also picking up those bigger dumbbells, all the stabilizers have to work harder. Like everything has to fire to keep them balanced, which goes all the way into your core. So, and here's a non-fitness lover's tip from yours truly, that when you can always go down. So and in fact, I think you, in the middle of a set, you tend not to go up, but if you pick up too heavy, you can always really quickly go down.
Yes.
And so after me personally, after I warm up, and you're always good at getting people warmed up, then you can trust that you can lift those heavier dumbbells. But I want to point something out. You said for all the people, you're a fitness person, you're a professional. Like I am not. I'm the first one to say I would I have no problem blowing it off. Like I had an early start to this morning, so I was like, yeah, I don't have to work out today. But I just want to point out for all the listeners and watchers, viewers, that you said you don't like cardio. Shame
Yep.
on you, Megan. How dare you? You're a fitness professional. You need to love it all.
We all have our strengths and the things that we like, and cardio not so much. Although I was an NCAA rower as well, which is like probably the hardest thing I've ever done cardiovascularly.
That is the most brutal cardio. That's why you hate cardio. You got
Yep.
PTSD.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. So you created a great program, super popular with the original Sure Thing. Now take us to the 3-week challenge of the Sure Thing Super Block. And how does that change things? Or, let's even start fresh. Let's just count this as a new thing that people might want to take as their summer challenge. What can they expect, and why is it going to be great?
Thanks. Yeah. So with the original Sure Thing program, it was already, a challenging program that met you at your level. So if you came in today, I'm asking you to lift as heavy as you can lift. I'm asking you to move as fast as you can move. And there's always modifications that are available for everything. So I feel like Sure Thing really meets everybody at their level. I also wanted to start challenging that level. And so we went 8 weeks with the original program. Now with the Super Block, we're taking it to 3 weeks. So I was thinking, how am I going to make this just a little bit different from the original program? And to me, that was just a small step up, a small little up level to the original program. And we do that in a lot of different ways. There's days that we are training more of an endurance style of training. And so I would say the way we did it was just small tweaks, and maybe we go a longer time interval. Maybe there's a smaller rest time interval with certain things, higher repetitions on our weight training days. And these are very small changes individually to each exercise or to each format. But when you start adding it adds up a lot during that week. And then when we get into the power formats, we went even lower in our rep ranges. So the original program, you would see anywhere from 8 to 12 in the rep ranges. Now we're going from 6 to 10 in the rep ranges. So even getting lower into those rep ranges with more opportunities to lift heavier in those formats, maybe longer rest time in between when we're trying to lift heavier. So you can be prepared to pick up those heavier dumbbells and start moving them. You had the rest time to recover from your last set enough to do that heavier weight. And then more explosive style of cardio in the power weeks as well. So a lot of, like I said, little tweaks throughout the entire program. That's just that next step up. I don't want to make anybody worried. You're not going to have done Sure Thing in the past in order to do the Super Block. It would be a bonus if you did, because you'll be prepared with a lot of these movements and things that we see as you head into the Super Block. But if you've never done Sure Thing before, again, it's meeting you at your level, because I'm asking you, how much can you do today? Give me your best effort today. And so it's always going to meet you where you're at, and we're going to have a really fun time. All the formats are very different, challenging. And like I said, we see enough variety in the formats that we're having fun and not getting bored, but enough consistency in the moves that we're seeing week to week where we can see that we're getting stronger, we're getting faster, we have more endurance, more strength, we're recovering faster in between those sets, which I think is something that people don't think about that. How am I recovering? Not only between sets, but between workouts, that gets better too. So these are all the things that we're going to see in the Super Block in 3 weeks time. So I'm really excited for everybody to get started on the Super Block and really take it up to that next level.
Yeah. So I think that's sort of new thinking, because obviously when you're doing in-home workouts, there's 2 goals. One is to compress the workout so it doesn't take a lot of time. And also, taking long breaks between sets on video is sort of awkward. It's just standing around. But I really appreciate the fact that you're generating what they call more hypertrophy. I think it's called hypertrophy. If people take that break, recover enough so that you can come back with more power, and that accelerates your results. I think that's a really unique approach that you're bringing to overall training on the platform. But
and there's certain blocks that we do that in. So there's certain workouts and certain blocks that we do that in. So I don't want anybody to think that every single day we're going to that you're going to feel like you're standing around. I can guarantee you're not going to feel like you're standing around in this workout. Like you're going to feel like I need that rest time to recover for that next set. And so it feels very much like we're getting something done, even if we are resting in between those moments of lifting heavy for sure. And we still do it between 30 and 40 minutes.
Well, Megan, but I want people, this is the thing, like, I'm in the middle of doing BODi Lava, and it's not my jam. Like, that's not the thing that I would go pick, but I'm doing something different, right? By doing something different, you're going to get different results. And this is the beautiful thing of having a lifetime. Not every program has to check at that moment, has to check all the boxes. You try a new thing and your body changes in a different way. Then you go back to maybe the way you love, just like you doing cardio when you need to do, when you need to exercise for cardiovascular health overall. Yes. But I think people, even if you don't feel like you need that break, actually probably the signal is you didn't pick up heavy enough weights. But I'm also always surprised when I do that, when I go to a program that is heavier, slower, and I get done it and I don't have that crazy fatigue at the end, wiped out, I can't walk up the steps of the basement. It's tricky because a couple hours later, and I'm not walking so good. Like it does sneak up on you.
Yes.
And but it also doesn't rip your body apart because you've got that time. So anyway, I hope people will give it a shot. Now let me ask you a question, and I want to wrap this up so that people can go get the program and get ready to start on August 5th, right? The first Monday of August.
Yes.
It's on sale all month of July. Well, it's on sale as of July 1st. Which I think this is supposed to post July 1st, and then August 5th, you're going to run a group?
Yes. So August 5th, we start together. And I cannot wait for that day. The podcast, we have a huge podcast that's with me right now. So we have like 100 people in the podcast behind me doing these workouts with you from home. And they have been enjoying it so much through this process. So just to bring in now that next bigger wave of people doing this workout together, I know we're going to have an amazing time, so much fun, and feel all those feelings, the strength, the confidence gains that we want to feel.
Now, because you train people still, right, in person? Mm-hmm. What do you charge for a one-on-one session?
Oh, I don't do one-on-one sessions, but at the we do like small group training basically at the gym.
What's that cost?
180.
Okay.
Depending on what you get.
So $180 for small group training versus what's the super block? $29, I think.
Yeah.
So for 3 weeks of training, it's mind-blowing. And your cueing is so good. I hope people take that in for a second. This is world-class training that people are spending $180 for just a little bit of training, and you're getting this 3-week. Right. I mean, that's insane. So it's an incredible value. You provide amazing instruction, and people are going to have a great ride with this. And I hope not only do they do it, but I hope they invite other people to do it so that they've got their own mini podcast, if you will. And I know you've got Lacey joining you again as the modifier. Is she doing that?
Yes, we're rotating out modifiers. So Lacey is with me again, which I was so excited. I asked her to be a part of this program again. She told me, I'm so excited because I want people to feel the friendship, the sisterhood, the energy, the joy through this workout. She's like, if people feel included while like we're together doing this workout, then that's exactly why I want to be there. So I thought that was such like an awesome thing for her to bring back into Sure Thing. So super excited to have her again.
That's awesome. Well, look, psyched to see it. Appreciate that you're finishing it out today. I hope your body's hanging in there because I know you're shooting a lot fast, but it's going to be great. Okay, Sure Thing goes on sale July 1st, and people will start the first Monday of August is when the big group's going to start, and you can join with Megan, with Lacey. I'm sure it's going to be a great group. And it's an opportunity for you to make it your project for August. That's what's so great about these mini challenges that we call blocks or super blocks is you lean into that one thing and you get that gratification of a day 1 to day 21 or day whatever. 3 weeks later, and you have the extra couple of workouts during up week. And you can even try the sample workout from the Superblock or the original Sure Thing if you download the BODi app or go to BODiPreviews.com. And just in exchange for your email address, that lets us send you special offers and let you know what's going on. But we'll give you lifetime access to over 130 workout videos, including Megan's Sure Thing sample, the sample for her program MBF, Muscle Burns Fat. Overall, that's probably like $100 worth of content that you have access to for free. And then you pick the program that's right for you, you set your goals, and you go for it. So you can go to BODiPreviews.com and see which program speaks to you. And if you have a great BODi experience, if you have particularly a great experience with Sure Thing or the Sure Thing Superblock, I want to hear about it so that we can maybe consider you for an upcoming episode of the BODi Experience, or maybe to celebrate you on @BODi Stories on Instagram. That's BODi Stories. We give a t-shirt to everybody that we feature, and that lets us see who's getting great results and who we should interview on the BODi Experience. Also, if you want to get updates from me, whenever we post a new episode of the BODi Experience or when we send out special offers, join my little private text community. You can text me at 818-650-4369. Okay, just follow the prompts so I get to know you a little bit, and then we'll be connected through that. So that's it for today. Sure Thing's coming. We got a lot of motivation and a lot of great things to experience together this summer for you to have a feel good summer and to feel good about yourself, not just about the outcome, but just something about getting up and getting it done is what makes you special. It's what makes the experience of BODi special. So super grateful. I hope you go for it. And I hope you particularly enjoy Megan's Sure Thing Superblock. All right. See you next time on the BODi Experience.